Let's talk a little bit about metals markets manipulation. And if there is one market I think is really manipulated, and there's really some more fact to it, is palladium. Palladium. You know, looking at the fundamentals, I know a lot of people talk about the fundamentals of silver and, you know, how much less of it is available for investment. And, you know, the ore that's mined every year is actually less and less high grade, so they have to cost them more to extract it and this type of stuff. And how much more of silver, you know, is used in industry, so is less available for investment, basically what I said before. But as far as what applying that argument to palladium, it's far more extreme. Far more. Way over 90% of palladium is used in industry. And you're talking like 8.5 million ounces global worldwide supply, including recycled supply. That's all that's available, 8.5 million ounces. So actually, even though palladium might be around $670 an ounce and silver's around 34 something, it would take less dollar investment in palladium to bring up the price and put a lot more pressure on the price of that metal. Now, as far as the land of conspiracies out there, you know, the Russians have had stockpiles in palladium for decades. It's a state secret. It's a closely guarded state secret. And, you know, and every time you read some story about, you know, the stockpiles are almost depleted, they'll say that in 2010. So many months, you know, the price will start going up, and then they'll dump it on the market, and the price will go down. Of course, you know, without any kind of proof, but you'd have to be born yesterday not to think that there isn't some kind of insider information and trading going on there where, you know, some people do know what's going to happen when palladium's going to be dumped on the market and when the price is going to be driven down. But fundamentally, palladium should even be worth more than platinum, and platinum fundamentally should be worth more than gold. So considering that gold is like $1,700 approximately, and palladium's less than $700, what the hell is the deal? Figure it out. So, you know, I know there's a lot of silver bugs out there, and I know the major disadvantage of palladium is it's never been used as money, but it's a real asset. It's a real asset. It's one of these deals that you're probably not going to be good for emergency type trading as much as silver, because it's not easily recognizable. A lot of people don't know what the hell it is. But as far as a valuable real asset that may actually explode in value, I think it's going to go through the roof. So, but you know, here's another angle. This is Norilsk, Russia, and there's a silver. Not a silver. It's a nickel and palladium and platinum mine up in that area. In this area, this mine in this town, Norilsk, Russia, produces about 38-39% of the palladium in the world. And, you know, it's listed as the top most polluted places. This is in 2007, but it still exists. It's actually, there isn't a tree growing within 20 miles of this mine. That's how polluted it is. So tell me, how are they going to clean up that area? Because they have to pay workers, mining workers, double wages, and they can't keep the place with enough labor to keep the mine going at full strength. So, you know, somehow the fundamentals for this metal seem stronger than any of them out there. Now, combine that with what happens in South Africa with all the strikes. You know, I think silver's going to do great, but I got a feeling this metal is going to do even better. You know, the problem, it goes on. Norilsk is an industrial city founded in 1935 as a slave labor camp. The Siberian city of Norilsk, Russia, is the northernmost major city of Russia and the second largest city above the Arctic Circle. So, you know, it's one of the worst conditions out there. And this is where 38-39% of the world's palladium comes from. So, figure it out. Once these supplies and the stockpiles are actually more diminished in Russia, and I think they still are holding some aces in the cards back, but I think those stockpiles are going down quite a bit. You're going to see these metals move up a lot, but especially palladium, the one that everybody's missing the boat on. I'm surprised wily old crafty Eric Sprott isn't pumping this metal like crazy, because it wouldn't take that many investment dollars to push it up to like a couple thousand an ounce easily. It should be worth more than gold by quite a large margin. I was looking at this thing on YouTube. Blythe Masters Refutes Claims that J.P. Morgan manipulates silver markets, and quite obviously it had a major dislike, which I dislike. I don't believe anything this lady says, but I almost have to comment on a lot of these career type women that get in these jobs, because they're evil as all hell. They're the worst of the worst of the worst by far. And she's not a very convincing, when I was listening to this, as far as, manipulation. Now, the thing is, I'm going to state this. I don't think manipulation is going to be able to occur forever, and I'm not even talking for, years. In other words, what's going on today is not exactly manipulation, like what's happening in the last year where silver and gold is being knocked down. It is part of like a normal cycle, but I think there's a surprise around the corner. I would assume that the surprise would have been here in 2012, but I swear I think the metals are on the way back up again, and they're going to break in through new highs again, partly due to this problem with the fiscal cliff. They're just going to keep spending more money, and there's no way in hell that's going to be good for the dollar. Investors aren't stupid. They need real assets. What every common person that realizes that has physical silver realizes, so do the smartest investors on earth realize. So there's no way in hell the dollar future is looking that bright. It's not like going to fall apart right away, but it's not that bright. I was looking at some of this stuff. Actually, I got this off the news unit, and he goes on to a number of things. He's got a number of interesting things on here. I'd like to comment a little bit about this one, about this New York Police Department officer gives the boots to a homeless guy. His name is Officer DePrimo. He's a good guy, but, to tell you the truth, I could state the worst people. Maybe I'm not saying nothing about him, but generally speaking, the New York City police are pretty damn corrupt. That's just how it's been. It's been like that since the 1800s. They work with big business and the politicians and everything else. You can actually find, if you go back in the archives, there's a lot of criminals that did a lot of good stuff to people too. I mean, not saying he's a criminal, but that's the fact. That's the fact. And many times it's even organized crime that, the mafia and all this type of stuff has been providing jobs for people, doing things for people, and it has its bright side. So, I mean, actually, I have a lot more respect for the mafia than I do the cops. That's no doubt at all, because, what I see what goes on with the police themselves is that they basically are an extension of the government, which is an extension of the big wealthy money. And Alex Jones likes to throw this term around, mafia, like it's the evil term. It's not an evil term. The way he applies it, it is an evil term. He applies it to the banksters. He applies it to the old money established elite. He applies it to the people that run the government. The mafia doesn't run the government. The real mafia doesn't run the government. The real mafia has nothing to do with gangster rap or nothing like that either. It has absolutely nothing to do with it. It just works behind the scenes, but it actually fulfills a need that people have. It may be, something like what this woman is here doing here right now, and it's not the great evil organization that Alex Jones likes to point out. But as far as manipulation in the markets, probably if there is one, I think silver is somewhat manipulated, but it ain't going to be able to manipulate it for like 5 years, 1 year. Actually, you're probably going to be surprised that even this year, when we're coming up in December, this last couple of days where you saw silver going up, it's probably going to continue on the way up. Usually at the end of the year, the metals and oil and all that type of stuff tend to finish kind of strong. That's usually a typical thing, because people want to have good quarterly results and end of the year results, because it's good for the people that are investing in stocks. It raises the stock price. They want to have a good year to finish out. So I expect things to actually turn up more and more for that reason, but also say that this everything's been going like almost a classic theory. We had the last pullback down around 26, went up to about 35. And then it had a little bit of a pullback just below 31. That's almost like a perfect Fibonacci point. Now it's back. It's basically off to the races. And once it closes over 35, it's going to go to the next point up to that. So I don't think silver's actually going to get to hard resistance till it gets up to the upper 60s to 75, and gold is past $2,000 an ounce. And it's probably going to happen a lot quicker than people think. But the ultimate, we'll have a pullback from there, but the ultimate highs are probably going to be hundreds of dollars an ounce. Hundreds. So it's definitely a long-term hold still. It's going to be some years before it actually reaches its full potential. But as far as the manipulation, I think you might find that if there ever is a metal out there that's more manipulated than silver, it's going to be palladium. And that has a lot to do with the Russians themselves. Hey, you might want to ask Vladimir Putin what the deal is, because they can't even keep people at Norilsk mine working, even at double wages. And they used to have the miners working up there. It was a slave labor camp, a gulag camp. So they just work them till they died of the environmental poisoning of all these metals in the air. And like I stated, there isn't one living tree within 20 miles of there. So just go figure it out. I mean, either they're going to have to clean that up, or I don't know if they're going to provide cheap palladium with slave labor. I don't know what they do, to tell you the truth. But somehow I don't think the slave labor scenario is going to work. I think they're under a lot of pressure from a lot of international organizations to clean up that area and all the pollution it emits, because it's going around the world globally. And to do that is going to cost a lot of money, and all that cost has to be factored in to the cost of palladium. So how could a metal that literally is many, many more times rarer than gold, and literally is used up far more as a percentage of its total supply in the industry area every year, plus is infinitesimal small and supply goes. Like in the case of silver, you got 1 billion ounces every year. In the case of palladium, you have less than 9 million ounces. I mean, that's a ridiculous difference, really. A ridiculous difference. And of that 9 million ounces, way over 90% of it goes to industry. It's almost mind-boggling how that metal could be suppressed, that price could be so low. And I don't think that has to do so much with J.P. Morgan. I actually think that has to do with somehow with Russia itself. And I don't know exactly why they're suppressing the metal that much, but I think at one point in time it may explode. And if you look back at 2001, they had to have a really big buyer. They created a problem where there was a rumor that Russia was not going to be able to produce all the palladium that the market needed, and Ford Motor Company panicked, or Ford Motor Company executives worked in concert with people in Russia, which is what I would suspect, and Ford spent all this money on buying palladium at 4 times the price of gold. So I suspect that type of deal is going to come up again. I think palladium is actually probably going to shoot up to several times the price of gold at one point in time. That would be where to sell. And that's some crazy value. In other words, gold could be at $5,000 an ounce, and palladium could be at $20,000 an ounce. Crazy, right? Crazy? I don't know. I don't think so. I got some patience, though. I'm not going to hold my breath waiting for it. I know it ain't going to happen next week. But it may happen that way. And if it does, good. Thanks.